Hey, it's Joe West from the West Barn with
Mike Shimshack.
Today our guest is Scotty Wilbanks from Nashville. Producer, record producer, and touring musician. Great piano, keyboard player. We're glad to have him. Before we get to Scotty, we want to remind you to subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe there. Hit notifications. If you're on iTunes or Spotify, just go ahead. And the biggest thing we could ask you to do is share it. Tell your friends about it. Put it on your timeline. We don't pay for promotion for this podcast. It comes from just people like you telling other people. We've been able to weasel our way up into the top 50 of the iTunes podcasts by just word of mouth. So thank you for that. Let's keep it going. And no further ado, Scotty Wilbanks from his studio in, where are you at?
I'm in Atlanta, Tennessee.
Oh.
Or some people like to say Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta. Hotlanta.
Hotlanta, baby. Yep.
Well, you're touring with Luke. So that keeps you in Nashville quite a bit, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was up there last week doing some TV stuff. We did the Today Show and Seth Meyers. And I'll be back this coming week. I've got some sessions up there, and then we're also doing the Opry.
Oh, awesome. Very cool. And they're doing the Opry with nobody in the audience, right?
That is exactly right.
That's got to be a little bit weird, right? Showing up.
I'll let you know in a few days. How's that?
Are they going to do paper cutouts of people like they do for Major League Baseball? Or they just
that's a great. I don't know that. I was watching the Braves game the other day, and it was like, wait, there's Chipper, but not really. Yeah.
Well, I thought you were going to be in Nashville because we were going back on our texts, and I thought you said you were in Nashville. So I was wondering, this is actually your home studio in Atlanta, yes?
That's right, yeah.
Awesome. And Mike tells me that you're like one of the busiest producers that he knows.
Well, I mean, I like to work. I like to stay busy. I don't know. Maybe I am. I don't know. Maybe so, Mike. I don't know.
We share a mutual friend who's been on the podcast before, John Kaplan.
Oh, yeah.
And he mixes a lot of Scotty's.
He does, yeah.
And I feel like every time I talk to him, he's like, got a new Scotty production. So.
Yeah, it's Kaplan and I have been buddies for years, and he's mixed a lot of records I've done, and I'm just one of those guys who I think's really lucky to have been doing it as long as I've been doing it.
How long is that?
Over 25 years.
Oh wow, you look young.
Well,
I mean, you could be. If I had to guess, I'd say you're in your mid to late 30s.
50.
You're 50?
Yep.
Wow. Now that's. I'm legitimately blown away because I usually cheat. Like if I think you're in your 40s, I'll say you're in your mid to late 30s because you want to be on the right side of history with that question, right?
Right.
Man, I would never guess you was 50.
I just hit the big 50.
Wow! Congratulations.
Well, I guess that's a monumental thing. I made it.
Well, there's so many things we want to talk to you about. You did something with Music Cares. You're touring with Luke. Your production stuff. We'll sort of knock them down, but I'm curious as a working producer. I want to know how you stay busy. Like I want to know how busy you are, and how you stay that busy. And if it's like, is it just like good, fast, or cheap? That old saying, pick any two. Right? Is it like, do you fill up your schedule with cheap work in between just to stay busy? What's that look like?
Man, it's, I kind of look at myself as more of a crock pot producer than like a microwave producer, if that makes any sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not like hey, let's just knock it out and be done. Okay, that's good. Next, like a fast food kind of thing. I feel like it's, I try to really take the time to, to put into each artist and each record so that we're getting, the best for them, to give them the best shot at having a career, if that makes any sense.
So it takes you a while to do a record. So that's one thing. It's like each thing, rather than being quick and off your schedule, it's on your schedule for a bit. So how much of that, like for me, when I'm producing, when I was in the era of my career where I was like needing to keep the book super full, I had this thing where it was like, okay, work that is really forward leaning for me, where I'm going to like invest in, try to get on these bigger records. But then it was like, how do I fill up my other time? And I did that by trying to find the right records to be a part of, but being able to say, look, if you can wait, I can do you around this other record. You may not get it when you want it, but this just if you're okay with that, we could do this. And it gave me a nice thing like, hey, I've got an unexpected week off from this record, right? So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to just go right into this thing for a week. Is that a part of what you're thinking or how you're staying busy?
It does. Yeah, that's a good kind of a part of it. It's a lot like, a lot of bands when they're touring, you get these anchor dates, right? So here's A and then here's point C or whatever. And then you try to fill in, getting to that point, to this point, when you're touring. And I think with records, it's like, man, I've got these 2 big records I got to do. I know there's going to be a little bit of break here, either because an artist is touring or whatever it might be that they can't be in the studio. And so, I'll certainly take on things that that are maybe like, hey, here's a 3 or 4 song EP, instead of a 10 or 15 song record. Like I'm doing a 15 song record right now,
Wow.
but I'll also, I've got a call later today of these guys wanting me to do 3 or 4 songs, and it's like, well, okay, I can take on
jump on something like that.
Yeah, but it also, I usually keep at least 2, if not 3 projects going, and I'll bounce from one to another.
You don't have to tell me what you make, but it's like, for me, I would be like, okay, here's my rate, and there's records that I need to maintain a rate on, or I can't work for a guy that was paying me $2,000 a song to mix, and I can't do a $500 mix for that guy. Where I could do a $500 mix for another scenario that came into my life that same week, So like, tell me, is there like a scalable version of you where it's like your hardcore card rate you got to maintain with some folks, but you also have some flexibility? There's always the friends and family rate. There's always these different things where like you can't necessarily tell people your rates because it destroys the market economy.
Yeah, I try to keep it all pretty much the same, for every client. If I'm doing a label thing or something like that, that's a little bit different. In the indie world, I try to keep it the same as much as I can. Certainly there's been records in my career where, especially early on, where I felt like, man, there's magic right here. I'm going to invest in this. I'm going to put my time into this, to help watch it grow and do what I think it can do. But yeah, the key, I think, in the music business is stay working.
Yeah.
And if that means this is what you charge for every record, or you have to change it up, stay busy, stay working, because we're so blessed and so lucky to get to do what we do. The goal is to keep it going.
Well, and when you're hiring a guy to mix your records, right? Like Kaplan.
Yep.
Well, then you can't work for nothing because you've got a bunch of third-party costs, right?
Oh,
so it's like,
oh gosh, yeah, for sure.
So you've got to make sure records have budgets, which is an unusual thing. People will come to me and they'll say, hey, we want to work with you. What's it cost? And I said, well, what's your budget? And 9 times out of 10, they don't know. And I'm like, well, go get your budget together.
Yeah.
Come to me with a budget. Yeah. And I can then tell you, I can then help you find solutions, but I'm not just going to give you some card rate that's quite frankly going to make it impossible for us to work together. It's like, you've got to come to me and say, we want to build a bridge, and these are the parts that we have, and this is the budget we have to build the bridge. Can you help us build a bridge? And then we could talk about how we pragmatically work together. But you can't just come to me because I have to give you a rate like, oh, it's going to be X. And I know that it's just going to put a period at the end of the sentence rather than like continue on. You want that ... at the end of a sentence. So you can say, come to me with your budget. We'll see if we can't work together. If I'm the right person, if I can help the project, if we have the schedule to do it, if your budget can at least allow, we'll figure it out. Maybe there's 3 versions of how this record gets done or whatever. But, they really do. I find that most people nowadays fail whenever it comes to the planning part If they're so invested in their music, they should have an investment in knowing how they're going to be able to finish it and accomplish it with the budget, and then go on to promote it and have the world be able to hear the great record you do together.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like, especially working with new artists, in the beginning, it's more like an education process. I'm educating them on what this looks like, with their time, with my time, with the people that needs to be involved. It's like, you want to go make a great cake. Well, you got to have these ingredients, and here's what they are. So many new artists don't really understand because they've never crossed that bridge before. And I spent a lot of time early on with newer artists, just kind of, sitting them down and going, hey, you like this record I did? This is why you want to talk to me. Well, here's what all goes into making that kind of record.
In fairness, they don't know.
They just don't know.
Yeah. It's like that Far Side cartoon where the guy had one cymbal in the orchestra and he's like, don't screw up, don't screw up. And it says right before,
that is
minutes
great.
Before,
that is great. Yeah.
I can appreciate that. So many people, this technology has allowed so many people to come on to the scene and make records when they really couldn't have done it in the past. So good for that. But the consequence of that is that they just don't have any idea what the landscape looks like. And a guy that's been doing it for 25 years, he thinks everybody has to know, but you're probably, every time you go in, you realize, hey, half of this is going to be orientation, right? Freshman orientation.
Man, it's true. But it's cool because I think it's, part of our, it's just part of our role is to help.
Part of your role.
It is, man. It's part of the gig. So
do you engineer your records?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So
the majority of everything I do. Yeah.
Let's say you're doing a big tracking date. You'd have a guy come in for that, right? Like full drum kit and full band and different isoboos. If you were at a big studio, you would have somebody probably to take care of that side of it, right?
I do at times. Yeah. I'll hire, a buddy or two to come in and kind of help, be Batman and Robin kind of thing,
it's just too much. I find, like, if I have to deal with all the sounds and routing and headphones and talkbacks, I'm not present for the conversation about whether or not we should be doing something in the intro. It's like, it's just too much.
Before the home studio thing kicked in, and I'm sure you guys are with me, we were doing records on 2-inch tape, ADAT, hard disk recorders, and before Pro Tools, really. And, I was spending a lot of time at these huge studios, learning the craft, all this kind of, all that goes into making records, and, once the Pro Tools really took off, that's the DAW that I use. But, when I started building my own home studio in my own space, I found that for me, I kind of leave everything set up the way I like it. So I've got my little patch bay over here, or my outboard gear, or my console right here, and it's like, man, that's, and like over here, it's like, hey, there's my 2-room, my 2-room pre's, my kick pre.
Right.
And I just kind of just keep it that way, and it makes it go quick and easy. Yeah.
Right. I get that. In your own room, I get it. There's a little bit more of like, you just turn on the gear and put the inputs on, and it's like, oh, there's all the sounds.
Pretty close.
So go ahead, Mikey.
I know you're a big presence in the Christian music world, and that's a lot of your background. Is that primarily what you're producing, or is it?
Well, it's really, obviously most of my career, was in the contemporary Christian world. I was in a band called Third Day for a long, long time. And so I've done a lot of CCM type records. But I just finished a record on Mark Wills, who's a great country artist, been around for a while, had a bunch of hits, and then I've done, lots. I used to do nothing but rock music, rock band after rock band, which I love. And, but please bring back rock music if you're out there. It's, I would say the good bit of it is still in the CCM world, but now that I'm, playing for Luke, and, I'm finding, I'm doing more country stuff, which is cool. I really enjoy it.
Yeah. So does a lot of your production work come from, like, hey, you played keyboards on the record, and next thing you're transitioning into producing the next project?
Wait, what do you mean now, Joe?
As a session player,
Oh.
Do you find that like, did you transition from playing on sessions as a player, and then slowly that became like, oh, let's do a creative project together where you're producing?
Yeah, a little bit. The producing part I fell into by accident. I was in a band in the early to mid 90s, and I was doing all the arrangements, kind of MD, I guess. And the lead singer had got asked to produce a record on a girl, and he was like, man, I don't really know what to do. She wants to do these covers, but do them like more modern and hip and all this. And can you help? And I just said,
what
okay.
if I hired you and then I took all the credit?
There you go. So what I did, is I started doing I made the arrangements and, program stuff or whatever we needed to do. And he finally was like, man, why don't you just finish the record? And I'm like, okay. And so one thing led to another, and then
good on him, because so many producers would say, hey, I'm a producer now. I'm going to spend the next decade producing records, not really producing records, hiring you.
Yeah. I'm a real hands-on kind of producer guy. I went to the University of Georgia with a saxophone degree, so I'm a horn player, but I've always played keys. And so, playing in clubs in college and rock bands, you were playing multi-instrumentalist kind of guy who sang. So I really enjoy all the different parts of recording, different instruments. I like to play drums. I like to play whatever. And I just enjoy it's real, I want people to do their thing, but it's real fun for me to be in the room with a drummer or a bass player or a band or whoever and feeding off of each other, man, because they may play something they thought was a mistake. And I'm like, holy crap, what was that? What do you mean? And I'm like, right there. And it turns into a thing.
But that's an interesting. We just got off a podcast with Todd Zuckerman, and we're talking about how he records the Styx records and other records, and doing it mostly alone, for a couple of days. In New York City, Mike and I will attest that's how most of the records happen. When I got down to Nashville and got to see the interplay that was happening, the dynamics of recording, and I've got this big old barn where I can record. I recorded 12 people at once in my barn for this big record, all live, and but unusual sessions, you've got drummer, bass player, keyboard players, at least one electric, and then a utility player and a vocalist. So what did I just say? 5 players and a vocalist? So yeah, there's something that happens with that where, like, dude gets on a ride and then someone's like, oh, I'm going to nod towards that, on my ride cymbal. And it's a thing that would not happen in track building, being, one at a time. And it's a really cool thing. And it reminded me of all the records I loved as a kid growing up, like the old Styx records or Kansas records or Led Zeppelin records where I imagine they were not listening to a click and doing just pounding in take after take into Pro Tools. This was like an organic human vibe, live performance vibe. There's really something beautiful that happens that I can tell in the spirit of a record when I listen on playback, at least on the records that I do. Whether I track build it, and there's some great things that happen in track building, but there's other thing that happens.
I'm so with you. The last studio Third Day record we did, we cut at Fame Studio over in Muscle Shoals. Legendary place, right? It's kind of bucket list moment for us as a band to go into a place like that and track. And man, we all set up just like they did in 1970, 69 when they opened, years and 40, 50 years ago. And we set up, and, all our records in Third Day, we tracked live as a band because that was important, that it's a band. But to go into a place like Muscle Shoals and just kind of feel the mojo in the room, which is like freaking crazy, because it's like, there's mojo in here. I don't know why. I've been in way nicer places, but there's something in the room. And you start playing, and then you go back into the control room and you listen to a take, and you've got, 5 or 6 dudes in there that just laid this thing down top to bottom.
Right.
And you go listen back and you're like, that's a magic.
Top to bottom. That's a great description of it. Because
Top to
once you
bottom.
get into a Pro Tools nonlinear editor, you're like, there is no top, there is no bottom. Sure, it's spread out across your screen, but it's arbitrary. It's like, well, let's go grab it. We're going to go over to Frozen Foods and grab our chorus, and we'll just blop, 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 blop. We're going to pre-chorus, and we're going to blop, blop. It's like putting links of a chain together rather than this, like, piece of film going by. It's a different thing.
No two bars are the same. Is really cool.
It's so crazy. And the other thing for me is
records are that, frankly,
I know, like when we were at Fame, I'm sitting there at the grand piano, right? And the flip top bass cab is right here because I've got my Coke sitting on top of the flip top, which is right bleeding into the piano mic, and the drummer's 8 feet over here. And it's just, then you've got like all the bleed is also an instrument.
You know what they call that? They call it room mics.
There you go.
It's like I learned that as a young kid. I learned like I was trying desperately to separate these items in a live room. And then this mentor of mine walked and he said, dude, just act like they're room mics. Put the piano where you'd like a room mic for your guitar. And then just work with them. Try to make them sane enough to play at levels that it actually works. Yeah. And then you were like, wait a minute, I have been swimming as if you've got one of those riptides. I've been swimming right towards the shore full strength, being pulled out to sea. I need to swim across. This is a different way to see the puzzle.
Yes. It's awesome to make I feel like, with obviously laptop recording and all the stuff that's going on today, which is great, people do great stuff. But at some point, man, people need to experience the mojo of live guys in a room tracking live like that. It's just magic.
What do you mostly do on your records? Track building or linear performances?
It really it kind of depends on the record. This record I'm working on now is I flew out to Texas to work with the artist and had a full band, and we did pre-pro writing over about a week period, right? And everything, we were able to track all of that into Pro Tools. They had a little studio there. So I multi-tracked everything so I could bring it back to my place. But we worked out the arrangements, and we did top to bottom. Let's play the song top to bottom. Yeah. And then I'll bring it back to my laboratory and, Frankenstein or do whatever we need to do. But I find myself doing a lot of both,
Right. So it's not like Mutt Lange per se, where a guy's like, this is how I make records. Some records deserve one way, some require another.
Well, I think, yeah. And you have to, it's like I've got 3 kids. They're all mine and they're all different. You know what I mean?
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like I have to treat each one different.
Well, that shows the scale of a great producer too. Like being able to have the wisdom to look at their kids differently and say, this is what this kid needs. This is how I need to. This is how I get a successful outcome for this child.
Exactly. And that's kind of how I look at it, and that's, some records go quicker, faster than others. It just depends.
Yeah. And you need to let them have their own spirit, because you're not selling, your spirit's boring. Yeah. All right. Maybe your spirit's good for a couple hits, but people don't want to, producers should not be putting their spirit all over a record. They should be trying to identify what the spirit of a given record is, and then just sort of coercing it, right? And being able to capture it into something that's memorable. That's the goal here. So you don't want to dominate a record, even though you can and manhandle a record, some of these, you got to have a varying degree of that depending on the record, but it's like the best interest of making great new records. Like I imagine Brendan O'Brien, when you hear his record catalog of the types of records he's produced, Matthew Sweet to AC/DC, right? Yeah. Like every record's, I would never know he did it. The sounds don't sound the same. Yeah. The production is just like whatever's great about that artist, right? So there's,
I did a record with Brendan, did a whole, he produced a record, a Third Day record, and he was bucket list moment for us. He's an Atlanta guy. He'd done the Black Crowes, all these bands, that I just love. And, it was really, really cool for me to work with one of my heroes, rock god Brendan O'Brien. And, Brendan, man, what I took away from all that was like, man, we're kind of similar. Like like whatever he's feeling in the moment with his gut was like, let's do this. Boom. And you're on it, man. You're riding a horse. We're going for it. Let's cross the finish line. You know, it was a really cool
How
thing.
is that record? Is it like one of your favorite Third Day records?
Yeah, man, it turned out really cool. It did.
Did he mix it?
He did. Yeah. And he's really quick too, by the way.
Well,
He mixed it in like 2 hours.
he mixed a record for us years and years ago that he did not produce. And I remember Mac, our lead singer, calling me, and he's like, "Hey, let's get." We cut it at Southern Tracks, which was a famous studio here in Atlanta. And Mac's like, it's like 11:30, and he said, "Hey, I'm going down to the studio to hear the first mix." I'm like, "It's not even lunchtime yet." You know, Brendan started at 10. It's like, there it is. You know.
Yeah, there's that Matthew Sweet record, 100% Fun, is one of the coolest sounding.
So cool.
Junky records I've ever heard. Like, he leaned into a lo-fi sound that just kind of like, man, I'd never think to do that. And it's just brilliant.
That's Brendan. Like, he had me play. We did a cover of a Cat Stevens, Morning Has Broken. You know this tune?
Yeah.
So the piano part at the top, it's pretty intricate, classical kind of sounding thing. And so I, got the part down, and I played it on a Yamaha C7, right? Boom. I'm thinking, I'm done. Brendan, you cool? Yeah, come in here. Okay. And he's like, "Hey, can you do that again?" I was like, "Yeah, what do you want me to change about it?" He's like, "I don't want you to change anything. I want you to stack it on the upright." And I'm not playing it to a click, by the way.
Right. Would have been nice to know for the first take, right?
Hold on a minute. You want me? Okay. So, that was a crazy moment with Brendan right there. Like, okay. And I ended up stacking it on the upright and a CP70.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
But talking about the sweet stuff, it's like, what a cool sound that made to do it that way.
He made a record for King's X. Do you remember this?
Gosh. Yes.
Dog Man was
Dog Man. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
It's a great record, and they hate it. They hate it. My buddy works at Master Disc, and he said that the band said, "Yeah, he made us sound like Uriah Heep."
What?
And I was like, "Man, I got to tell you, you're wrong. It's one of the coolest records."
For sure.
Killer record. And I've always respected guys that can do that.
That was we had Michael Beinhorn on the other day on the podcast, and we're talking to him about Soundgarden. I'm like, "Yeah, did they like Super Unknown?" He's like, "No."
Isn't that crazy?
Impossible.
I know. Like, when I think of King's X, I think of that record.
That's the record.
Yeah. I mean, they were great. The King's X thing was interesting because they're such a great band, but then they were like pioneers to this genre that Chevelle kind of took and made insane. So in the height of that movement, they weren't my favorite band doing it. You know what I'm saying? It's like weird because I loved them so much, and they were so like the special little thing, like when I found U2, right? And before anyone knew them, like Under Blood Red Sky, or War. And then it was like this whole genre developed, and then they were no longer my favorite, which was kind of weird for me. And Under the Table Dreaming had some great moments on it. Dog Man for me was their Abbey Road or their Sgt. Pepper's Pet Sounds. Yeah. And it's just so funny to know that the band hates it.
I didn't know they hated it, so that's crazy.
Well, according to Andy Van Dett at Master Disc in New York City, he said, quote unquote, "He made us sound like Uriah Heep," which I just thought was so funny.
That is funny.
Guitar tones on that record are insane.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So what was with Third Day? What was the life cycle of that band? Why did Third Day go away?
Well, man, when you do something for 20 plus years, all, and on the road, I just, I think at some point you just go, man, I need to lay this down for a minute. I don't think it means that, hey, the band's done forever, never going to play again, like the Eagles, right? Yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't know. But,
it's such a big band. I got to imagine people are like shaking you guys saying, "Hey, what if you guys went out this summer," right?
Yeah,
I think a new record.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely people you read a lot where people are hitting you up or post about it or whatever, or comment on something about, hey, I wish y'all would come back. Please play another show, and it's so cool because the Third Day fans were the best. I mean, just unbelievable, faithful, loyal, incredible fans.
Yeah.
And, but it just, I think it just got to a place where, it was time to just put it on pause and, do some different stuff. And
it sounds like a very diplomatic way of saying it. Like, I can tell I have this story where it's like when people ask me about like, hey, why aren't you still making records with this person? Or it's like, I know what this is the face of. I know what this is the face of.
Well, my typical response would be, it'll be in my book. No.
Oh, dude, I mean, it's just like, and let's face it, it's impossible to show people your best face, continually being barraged with situations to fail at a character level. Knowing people for 20 years, you're in continual, like, they're literally like booby traps, tiger traps all around you that challenge your ethics in regards to what it is you do and the decisions you make. People don't understand. To survive that for 20 years and not have some like hard stories to tell. That's, and I don't know anything about it, but I can tell. I've had it. Mike's had it. If you've been in the music business, I always laugh because my friends that have their first story, sometimes they quit the music business because of them. And some people will talk about it as so painful because it changed the direction. And I'm like, dude, I've been through 5 or 6 of those stories. I've learned to have an elephant skin in this business.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I tell people I take punches for a living and eat those for breakfast. You know what I mean? I mean, it's part of it. Did you guys you saw Muscle Shoals documentary, right?
Oh, yeah.
I did, yeah. Incredible.
And there's a place in there where Rick Hall says, man, if you've never been screwed over in the music business, then you ain't no good.
Right. But you know what? I tell you what it does. It slowly teaches you how to treat people.
That's it.
It teaches you not to get to a point. I've had to continually learn, like, how do I still do business with this person? Because we do good business together, but we don't do good people together.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got to scale. It's something I'm still learning, but I always tell people, I have a little school and I'll tell them, I never say no to a record. Mike Shimshack and I had to sign a non-disclosure, but I had Mike Shimshack reach out to a client and wanted to hire me. And how much did I, for the one single song, what was the rate, Mike?
$100,000, I think
it was $100,000. That, my friend, is how you tell people yes when you really want to say no. I just, if he would have given me $100,000 to finish this record that was a nightmare record, I would have gone and done it. It would have made sense for me. I don't say no. It is a business, so it's like, not show friends, it's show business. You realize when you've got good friends and you treat them like good friends, but you got to find a way to do business with people sometimes that you don't want to. And not saying no is my policy, and eventually finding ways to get around doing records or doing them and being $100,000 richer in 60 days. I'm still learning, but it's an interesting path we have as creators because we want everyone to do well. And when you're pushing, I always use this analogy that you're pushing every time you work with an artist, you're pushing an apple cart up a hill. And you two are pushing so hard on this apple cart. I picture this old wooden apple cart, right? And going up this Jack and Jill hill.
Yeah.
That you feel like you're really changing the world. And there is this camaraderie that happens. But then you get the apple cart to the top of the hill. And then there's always a situation where you're pushing another apple cart up the hill. Maybe it's something for you. And you say to your friend, your apple cart pushing friend, who you help them push their apple cart up the hill. You say, hey, dude, help me, I'm slipping. And then you realize I was pushing their apple cart up the hill. They don't want to help me push my apple cart up the hill.
Oh, hello.
That is the music business, my friends.
Well, yeah. You give people what they want, and then they don't want you.
Yep. You've got to be slick. You've got to be clever. You've got to want to help people and want the best for them. But you got to protect the living daylights out of your soul because they will rape your soul 10 times out of 10.
Oh, so, yeah, man.
That's been an art form to learn.
It really is. I mean, not just for me, but for my wife as well.
Right. Well, I
You know what I'm
find
saying? It goes past me.
we handle it better than our spouses handle it. Our spouses from the outside get very angry because they see it for what it is, which is betrayal.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
And they are like super protective of us. I find that for me, it's easier for me to swallow it and accept it for what it is and to move on. If I have to do business, figure out a way to do it. It's a little easier because I know my wife is carrying the grudge. Because I know that there's somebody there that's going to be like, I don't have to stand up for myself and say, yeah, and then they did this. And then eventually you realize, oh, I'm giving this guy that moment from Jerry Maguire where we're all telling our sad stories. They're sitting out at dinner.
Yeah.
She says, Jerry, let's not tell our sad stories, right? It's like nobody wants to be that guy in the room. And you usually don't realize it till you're about 5 minutes into your pitch as to why you don't work with someone anymore. And then you realize, oh, I'm that guy.
Right.
It's always easier when your wife does it for you, is my point.
I mean, when people tell me they want to get in the music business, I usually go, let me ask you something. Can you do anything else?
But let's face it. Coal miners don't want their kids to be coal miners. Lawyers don't want their kids to be lawyers. Right? I mean,
That's
is there
great.
anything, if you work hard enough at anything, you realize how difficult being successful at any one thing is. Photography, video, record producing, being an artist. Let's face it, to do anything well is a nightmare to do. And when you look back at it, you're proud of what you did, but would you do it again? I don't know that you could.
Man, you got to love it, right, bro? I mean, both of you guys, you got to love it.
You got to love it. You got to be dumb enough to go back to the whipping post after it's like,
hit me again, man. Hit me again.
Next day you're over by the whipping post. So, and that's a beautiful thing.
Love. We should get into the Music Cares song that you did, because that is a labor of love. That's a lot of work, man.
Dude,
oh yeah,
it was a labor of love.
Where'd the idea come from?
From this whacked out brain. Middle of the night in the studio by myself during quarantine, missing my bandmates and touring, and and not knowing when can we do that again.
Right.
And it just came out of a place where, I wrote it at the very end of March. I had that was, fairly early on during the real hardcore lockdown quarantine stuff. Right. And I'd already gotten, some calls and texts from guys that, they're professional musicians who tour, and they're all like, dude, what's going on? Do you think we're going to play this summer? Do you, man, I don't know what I'm going to do, and you just start, I don't know. For me, it was like, surely there's something that I can do, with my time and with my talent or whatever to try to help some people. And on March 29th, I got burned out, as you guys know how it is, working on a record. You're sick of it. I don't want to hear it anymore. And, it was late at night. I turned to the keyboard, to the Rhodes, and I start playing this tune and stayed up most of the night doing a full demo of it, and went to bed and got up the next morning and pulled it up to listen. And I thought, man, this is going to, like a lot of things I do in the middle of the night, and I hear it fresh the next morning. I'm like, that sucks, thinking it's not going to hit me right. And it hit me pretty good. And so, man, I did a little MP3 of it and sent it to all the guys in the band, in Luke's band that I play with. And, sent it to those, and they were like, man, that's really cool, man. If you want me to play drums on it or bass or guitar, whatever, man, I'll play on it. I was like, yeah, maybe so. I don't know. We'll see. And, that afternoon I got a call from my buddy Chris Kimmer, that plays drums for Thomas Rhett, who's a big country artist. And we were just, shooting the bull about this whole virus and everything that's going on. And he said, man, I just miss playing. I was like, me too. I just started jamming last night. And he's like, dude, if you like ever want me just to play on something, he's got a great studio in Nashville called the Brown Owl. And he said, dude, I'll just do it. Like, whatever, man. If you can pay me whatever, don't worry about it. I just want to play. And I said, man, I wrote this jam. I'll send it to you. Send it to him. And he hits me back like, dude, this is cool. Yeah, I totally want to play on it. And that's kind of how it all started, with my guys in Luke's band and with Chris, with Thomas Rhett.
But when you watch the video, it's like guitar player after guitar player after bass player after drummer. So it's sort of like a We Are the World of
musicians.
Right.
It really became a project of you build it and they will come, and then wait. Right. When I wrote it, the part where Brad Paisley comes in, when I was writing that, I was like, this needs to be like Brad Paisley was playing it. And in with Steve Wariner, I heard, man, what if Chet Atkins played this, what would that be like? And of course, who does it better than Steve?
Right.
And I called.
How did you
my
get
buddy,
Steve Wariner and Paisley on it?
Okay, so like I said earlier, I had done a record on Mark Wills, country artist, and I called Mark and I said, man, I need what do you think about this idea? I hear somebody like Chet playing, but Chet can't play it, obviously. And he's like, you need to call Steve. I was like, yeah, okay. And I was talking to, then I talked to James Cook, who's our bass player with Luke, who used to play with Steve years and years ago. And he's like, man, I think Steve would be all about this. Let me call him. So next thing I know, James hits me back. He's like, dude, Steve loves it. He's in. He said, call him. I'm like, call Steve Wariner? This is great. What a great day. So I called Steve. We hit it off right off the bat, man. And he did his part, and it was, you hear it. I mean, my goodness, it's just great. And then, as I built the track, I had called my buddy Sonny Emery that plays with Eric Clapton and was in Earth, Wind, and Fire, and my bud Sam Sims that played with Michael Jackson and all these people, and started to build the foundation of this track, drums, bass, you know how it goes. And I was sharing the idea with Carrie Edwards, who manages Luke. And she was like, this is great, and, can I help? And I was like, I need Brad Paisley. Like, I wrote this section with Brad Paisley. I don't know Brad. I don't know anybody in Brad's camp. She's like, oh my gosh, I know Brad, let me work on this. And the next thing I know, it took a couple of weeks, but Carrie calls me and she's like, okay, I think Brad's going to do it. And I talked to Brad's manager and he said, man, Brad really digs this. He's going to do it. And
wow,
that's how it happened.
That's wild, man. And it's associated through the Grammys have a sub sort of 501c3 company called Music Cares. I don't know if they're owned by the Grammys or just work in partnerships with them, but Music Cares is an organization that provides anything that a musician needs. If they need healthcare, if they need, if they had
counsel.
Anything that might come up in a musician's life that is just more than what we can manage as a musician, because we don't have consistency like a regular 401k job. Yeah, they seem to provide.
I say Music Cares is like the Red Cross for the music.
Great analogy.
Because they're in crisis. And right now, massive crisis.
Massive crisis.
Which is, this industry that we've poured into for all these years, 26, 27 years for me, for you guys, whatever it is, it's really hurting. And all my friends are really hurting. And we don't know when we can do this again. And so that was really the heart behind doing this project called Quarantine, with all these incredible players, just to help Music Cares. What can we do to raise a flag going, hey, this is going on. These people, it's not just the guys on stage. It's the massive amount of people behind the scenes that allow that work, to help us do what we do. Because we can't do what we do without the 50, 60, 100 people that are working behind the scenes that the public may not even realize are there.
Producers, engineers, anybody who is like suffering right now, they have some means to go get resources to keep on keeping on. So it's a great organization. Yeah. It's really cool. Do you plan on doing any more, or is it just such a birthing process that you wouldn't do another one?
Some people have already asked, like, when's the follow-up, and I've had other guys go, man, you better let me play on the next one, I don't know. We just put this one out, and, it's on It's on the Music Cares YouTube channel.
We'll go ahead and link to that in our description. So down below, you'll be able to go find that.
Yeah, and the website we have is quarantineallstars.com. So you can go there. There's donate buttons there as well as watch the video. Mm-hmm.
And let's face it, musicians are prideful. We had a musician on recently that just played in front of 60,000 people and was trying to scrounge gigs together because he needed to make the rent.
Yeah.
And he was unashamed to talk about that. But it's like, it's hard to go from playing at stadium to asking somebody, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay my rent this month. How can you help me figure that out? These aren't the kinds of people. They're used to rejection. It's maybe to a flaw, they'll continue on. And this is one big rejection right now, COVID,
Yeah.
I'm afraid they'll get in too deep, and end up losing certain things that they need, like housing, food. So it's a great cause. And if you care about music or if you enjoy music, Jerry Goldenson says, you can't go through your day without hearing music, regardless of who you are.
Exactly. And Luke,
Give
Luke
a
Bryan,
little back.
Luke Bryan introduces the video, and at the end of when he talks about the video and Music Cares, he goes, hey, thanks for supporting music and the people that make it.
Yeah. It's just a little bit like we're so willing to go ahead and just say, hey, there's a tax on cigars. You're going to pay extra for a pack of cigarettes or a little bit of alcohol, these little sin crimes. But it's like, what about the good things? It's like, why can't you just self-tax yourself and say, I'm going to give, if everybody gave $1, it'd be $330 million, a third of $1 billion.
Yeah.
Right? There are people that are prideful that don't want to take advantage of the system, but they really could use some help just knocking out the rent to get them through this. It's a really tough time.
It is.
Deserving people. We don't want them working at Home Depot.
Right.
We might lose them.
What have you heard, Scotty, in terms of performing in the future? I mean, is there any talk at all?
Well, Luke, first of all, I think I work for the best guy. I mean, Luke is unbelievable, really amazing. I can't say enough good things about Luke and Carrie and the team. Luke just put a brand new record out a couple days ago, and we were supposed to be in the middle of a big old tour. And so everything obviously been on shutdown, but we are looking at May of 2021. And that's what we're looking at.
Wow. I heard that there was a CAA meeting where they said they were looking at 2022 as a viable.
I can't even stand to hear that, actually.
Me either. That kind of blew me away when I heard that. I was like I had been ready. All these little gut punches you've been getting, you've been ready. You're like, okay, and you just had your heart set on 2021. It's like being in a car for a ride as a kid. Think you're about to get out, and then it's like, oh no, we're going to California. We're in Missouri.
Right. God. I can't handle 20. That just, I don't know.
Well, let's hope it's not true.
I'm more optimistic than that, man.
I am too.
Me too.
Hey, and also, it's just so interesting. Okay, so some people just have it. Like some of my friends, I try to not worry about my friends in the music business because the story is always roller coaster, right? But it's like, me and Mike have buddies that we're like, oh, I'm not worried about that guy. He's too talented. It's like, here's a dude in one of the biggest Christian rock bands ever, transitions from that into producing at a high level, session musician at a high level. Now he's touring with arguably the biggest country star out there. Like when you go out, you don't go out and play rinky-dink hockey rinks of 18,000. You guys play stadiums.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think that's a testament to you. I don't want to hear a little bit about it, but it's like, I think it says a lot about who you are. I don't know you that well, but it's like I know a lot about you by just looking at what your trajectory is. People like that seem to be the same person. They seem to have a lot of talent and a lot of tenacity.
Man,
you're also diversified within music, which is really smart. I don't know if that was intentional, but the production, like you and I have worked together on stuff I've produced. Obviously the touring is huge. You seem to be fairly diversified within music, which has sure kept you going.
Well, I learned a long, long time ago not to put all your eggs in one basket. you know, and music is such a crazy career path. And, you know, I feel like that to survive in today's world, you've got to wear multiple hats, man. You know,
True.
You just do. And I just have always been one of those guys who put on different hats, you know, and went to work. You know, I mean, Kaplan would tell you I like to work. That's a problem I have. I'm a workaholic. You know, but I also tell people, I'm like, man, you know, hard work beats talent when talent don't work hard.
Oh, dude, I love that.
You know, and I feel like, you know, a lot of this business is you never know when you turn a corner what's going to be right there. Like, I never thought, well, first of all, you don't think this band you've been playing in forever is going to be done. Okay, then that happens. And then you're like, okay, after 25 years of touring, I'm probably done. And then, wait a minute, I just got a call from Luke. Okay, hold on, what's going on? You never know. But what you do know, or what I feel like I try to know, is I'll be prepared and perhaps my opportunity will come.
Right.
And I think that, you know, you hear with musicians, it's like, man, you got to woodshed, man, you got to practice, and you do, you know, I think you've got to have your crap together so that if the phone rings and you've got to respond immediately, that you're going to be able to hit the ball.
Yeah.
You know,
well, when has change been a bad thing for you? Change is so unsettling. We fight it with every muscle in our body, but every piece of change in my life that I was just devastated by ended up being necessary for the next giant thing that I could never have imagined.
I look at it as, instead of change, I call it more pruning in order for something to grow.
Right.
There's this pruning, whether it's a tree or your life or whatever,
you
know, and for me, you know, it is, I hate change. I mean, I have the same patch bay and same everything for all these years. But in my life, I've learned that when it does happen, I'm probably going to grow from it. And
now you realize that.
I mean, you do now. Hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
But man, it's, you know, it's just more like a pruning season for me, I think, you know.
Yeah, for all of us.
Totally. Yeah.
The question is, what are you gonna emerge as? You know, what is the new version of what change brings on? You know, it seems like everything goes on. You know, if there's shark attacks, it's the big thing that the story keeps getting bigger and bigger. And we'll probably have other epidemics and things where we're realizing we don't always have to show up to make the money anymore. We can't show up to make the money. So we've got to find ways to be realized in a virtual world. We've got to find other ways to be creative. You know, is what I'm taking from it. Trying to figure out my new workspace.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's the same for all of us. You know, we're all trying to figure it out, right?
Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll get back on the road in 2021. And I hope so too. I think the world desperately needs it. Mike was saying before, it's like, you'll be the last guys to go on the road because you're playing the biggest venues. They're not going to open up stadiums before they open up little clubs, you know? So
1,000 people these guys play for. It's crazy.
How many?
80,000, 80,000.
Yeah. I mean, if we do a stadium, you know, like Gillette Stadium or Ford or whatever it might be, and, you know, it's 70, 85, whatever thousand people, you know, I mean, it's certainly a rock star moment to walk out on stage in a stadium.
Incredible, man.
I mean, it's like, what? Yeah, that's definitely a rush for sure. Yeah.
Well, that's wild, dude. Well, thanks for telling us your story and all the things you're a part of. We're going to have a link down, and if you could text me, and when we're done here, I'll make sure I get all the socials, including the actual website where you can donate, not just see the Music Cares piece you put together. But we'll get all that orchestrated together and pointed towards places people could find you if they're interested in maybe working with you, hearing more about you, Instagram and whatnot. We'll get you all hooked up down in the description. So thank you for coming and hanging out. It's been a great hang with you. And
yeah, man.
We'll get to meet here in person when you get to Nashville, maybe if you have some free time.
Yeah, I would love that. And thank y'all for having me on the show, man. It's such a cool thing you're doing.
Thanks, bud.
That was big. money-making scheme is he started a podcast. That's his money-making scheme.
Why not?
How to lose hundreds of dollars a month without even trying.
Oh man, it sounds fun, dude. Sounds fun.
You nailed it right on the head. I told my buddy, I said, man, it's just so much fun to hang out. We would have these epic hangs at my barn or on one of my porches at my house. We'd sit there and smoke cigars and other things and drink whatever, and we would just talk all night. And they became kind of epic because it's just such a fun hang. And the thing that was in common is that we don't know each other, but this is the energy of what that hang was.
I love it.
It's something that happens with folks like us.
Yeah.
And we're like, man, would it be cool if we could just see if that works online? And hopefully it is, but it's fun.
It's working for you. It's awesome.
It's a ton of fun, and that's what matters. So Thank you for being part of the fun, bringing the fun all the way from Hotlanta.
Yeah.
And we thank you all for listening. We're signing off from the West Barn. We'll see you next time.